doesn't feel good to admit this, but I legitimately don't have the attention span anymore for TV or movies. Like, I'll put something on and I think I'm going to enjoy it, and then the next thing I know, I'm not enjoying it because I'm just looking at my phone.
I'm noticing something terrifying about myself and others, and that is that I cannot focus. Or more like, I am struggling to have any moment of my day where I am not actively being distracted. A podcast, music, a background TV show, a movie while I also scroll on Reddit or TikTok or Instagram at the same time, never giving any of it my full attention. And it is overwhelming. What's insane is I can't even say that I enjoy any of it. Sure, I laugh at some things, sometimes I learn something, I'm often amused, but at the end of the day, I feel depleted. I feel mentally exhausted and overstimulated, and honestly, I feel like some dairy cow that's been milked dry by tech companies and who only sleeps so I can refill my energy cup to do it all over again. This has only been getting worse for me over the past few years. This isn't something that I always experienced, and it's also something that I feel like others are going through. I read the stats recently and saw that globally, people average 6 hours and 40 minutes of screen time per day, and Gen Z in particular averages around 9 hours of screen time per day. To put that into perspective, if you live to 85 years old with that screen time rate, by the end of your life, you'll have spent 32 years of your life staring at a screen. Subtract the time you spend sleeping 8 hours a day, and now you only have about 25 years of life away from your screen. That is it. That is where we are headed. And none of this is meant to be preachy. Honestly, so much of this video is me trying to convince myself about how much my screen time and social media is rotting my brain and my wallet. And I'm hoping that this video not only helps me with my own relationship with social media and devices, but can also hopefully help you with yours. I mentioned this topic the other day on a community post, and it seemed to resonate with people, which is why today we're going to talk about how social media is rotting our brains and our wallets. I want to talk about the psychology behind our scrolling addictions, the way companies prey on that psychology to make money from us, and how it impacts both our mental health and our finances. If you're new here, I'm Kara, and I make video essays on the intersection of money, media, and culture. My whole goal with this channel is to give you the tools and the money psychology to help you get a better handle on your finances. So be sure to subscribe to see more, and if you end up liking this video, I think you'll really like my video on how consumerism ruins our planet and finances, which I will link down below. But first, what is wrong with our brains? In Neil Postman's book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, Postman writes, "What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one." That Orwell and Huxley he's referring to are the authors of 1984 and Brave New World, respectively. Both incredible books that high schoolers are forced to make a ton of book reports on, and for good reason. We need more people thinking about the worlds each of those books describe, so that we can tell if or when our society ever starts slipping into those dystopian directions. Unfortunately, we are seeing a bit of both right now. At least in the US, we've been seeing an uptick in people banning books, but we're also seeing Huxley's prediction of people not being interested in reading. As Postman writes, quote, "People will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think." And not to be dramatic, but this is totally happening, 100%, to myself, to my friends, to strangers on the internet. We have literally come up with the phrase brain rot, and we kind of love it. We celebrate the niche of brain rot. But even though part of ourselves might love it, I think overall we are feeling really trapped. I know that's my experience, at least. It's like there's this war going on between the monkey brain part of me and then this more human soul part of me, for lack of better words. But before I dive into the psychology of what is trapping us to social media, I want to first bring up one way that I think is really effective for moving through that tug of war that's going through our brain, and that is through therapy. If you've ever been curious about therapy, or you've been really trying to find a therapist in your area that meets your needs, today's sponsor, Grow Therapy, is there to connect you with independent licensed therapists across the US for both online and in-person sessions. I know from experience trying to find a therapist, especially one that's in network for my health insurance and in my region, that it can be so confusing and so overly complicated, to the point where in the past, I've honestly just put off doing therapy for years because I was really confused and overwhelmed trying to find a therapist that met my needs, and that ultimately was not very very good for my mental health. But luckily with Grow Therapy, you can find and be connected to licensed therapists that match your specific needs. Therapy sessions with Grow Therapy average only $21 with insurance and have the potential to go as low as $0 depending on your plan. So many of the cycles we get trapped in, whether it's social media addiction, toxic relationships, thought spirals, are things that therapy can help you process and get through. To learn more about Grow Therapy and check it out yourself, go check out the link in my description below or scan the QR code on my screen. And thank you so much to Grow Therapy for sponsoring today's video. So back to the psychology of why we are so addicted to our screens and how it is totally rotting our brains. There's a phenomenon called the slot machine effect, and it refers to the dopamine hits in anticipation for even more dopamine that a person gets when playing a slot machine. But it is not just slot machines that get you hooked on the dopamine like that. Our phones, social media apps, the algorithms that feed us video after video after video, these are all based on trying to replicate the slot machine effect, also known as variable ratio reinforcement. See, when our brains are given rewards randomly and unpredictably, we get more hooked to a behavior, even more than when we know a reward is coming. It's weird, right? But it's true. Our brains crave novelty, and so we find unexpected dopamine hits so much more interesting than something that is expected.
Every time you scroll, click, or swipe, your brain releases a small burst of dopamine. This makes your brain crave quick, easy rewards, and over time, it becomes harder to focus on slower, more demanding tasks like reading or problem solving.
If you haven't already, go check out the Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. It's an incredible documentary that interviews many of the people who literally created the algorithms and apps that we are hooked to.
I was the co-inventor of the Facebook like button.
I was the president of Pinterest,
Google, Twitter, Instagram.
And in it, they share how human psychology is weaponized against ourselves in the name of farming our attention.
There's entire teams of engineers whose job is to use your psychology against you.
On top of the slot machine effect, there's also the psychological forces of normative social influence and something known as the Zygarnik effect. Normative social influence is this idea that we conform to what we think others expect or value. In the world of social media, we're talking likes, comments, follower counts. We're literally handed metrics to compare ourselves against and aspire to. It's unnatural. And guess what? It's also never enough. And because it's never enough, because there's always someone who seems more popular or cooler or richer than us online, we get hooked trying to compete. It's like we're constantly looking over our shoulders, wondering what will level up our digital lives and make the algorithm gods shine down on us. We start crafting our lives for validation and become scared of posting the wrong thing and being deemed cringy.
To be able to succeed, to be able to grow, to be able to achieve unimaginable things, you need to let go of that fear of being cringe.
My hot take, by the way, this is something I feel very passionate about. I will rant on and on if given the time. But if you feel that something is cringy, it is much more a reflection of your own insecurities and discomfort with something about yourself. So say you look at some people dancing in public and they're kind of being goofy and you're like, oh, that's so cringe. I think that is more a mirror being held up against you about your own insecurities deep down. It might be that you wish that you had a little more confidence to go dance in public and you just feel really uncomfortable anytime you express yourself like that. I will die on that hill, so fight me in the comments if you want, but I'm just saying, cringe culture is so goofy, and if you feel cringiness, it's worth investigating why you feel that and if it's actually just something deeper within. So yeah, fight me on it. But anyways, moving on from my threats and my philosophizing, normative social influence taps into the very human desire to be connected and be part of something bigger. But technology and social media have twisted it on its head so that instead of promoting community and a sense of belonging, we're more often than not feeding into insecurity and alienation. But because we crave that sense of belonging so badly, and because we want to be nosy and see how others are fitting in comparatively, we log onto our social media platforms day after day, scrolling endlessly while rotting our brains in the process. The stats around social media's impact on mental health are kind of terrifying, honestly. 9 in 10 girls say they follow at least one social media account that makes them feel less beautiful. And research shows more social media use leads to increased mental health issues. It's like we're taking this toxic drug that, yes, it has some benefits. It has some entertainment and community, but overall, it is hurting us and it is making us more miserable. But because it preys on psychology like normative social influence, or because it gives us that slot machine effect of dopamine, or because the colors of social media itself are designed to capture our attention and evoke certain emotion, all of it leads us to spending hours of our lives every day scrolling. That endless scroll, by the way, that is the Zeigarnik effect at play, the other psychological force that I mentioned before. The Zeigarnik effect is the brain's tendency to fixate on the unfinished tasks. This can be a book you didn't finish, or a TV show that ends on a cliffhanger, or even your Amazon shopping cart that you were putting items in but you haven't bought yet. All of those things don't have a concrete ending, and so your brain keeps it open like this mental tab. And social media exploits this perfectly. Because think of the feeds that you use daily. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, even YouTube. There is no final page, no natural stopping point. You'll never ever reach a point where you have scrolled and the social media app will tell you, congratulations, you did it. You reached the end of your scroll. Time to go touch grass now. The closest we get is on TikTok, where they do those, have you been scrolling instead of going to bed messages, which personally fill me with a little bit of shame when I get them. This concept of the infinite scroll for social media, though, it wasn't always the case. If anyone's been on social media long enough, you'll remember it used to be based on chronological order. So once you were finished scrolling through your friends' recent updates, it ended. That was it. You were done scrolling. According to Wired, the infinite scroll idea was invented by designer Asa Raskin in 2006 as a way to keep people online as long as possible, an invention he now deeply regrets. He went as far as comparing the infinite scroll, quote, to a study in 2005 that gave users bowls of soup that constantly refilled via a tube underneath the bowl. Participants ate 70% more soup than those with normal bowls and did not even notice. And honestly, that is how it feels when you're in this scrolling loop. I'll be on my phone scrolling for a little bit, I'll be done, and then I look at the clock and realize that hours have passed. And it's kind of terrifying to feel like you've almost blacked out. And it's partly because of the Zeigarnik effect. You never feel fully satisfied. You're chasing closure in a system designed to never give it to you. It's why we constantly refresh our feeds, hoping that we'll find something that makes us feel something, whether it's inspiration or sadness or anger. It's our brains trapped in this open loop. And the worst part is that these loops can accumulate on top of each other, leaving our minds cluttered, overstimulated, exhausted. We're not just passively consuming some light brain rot, we are carrying unfinished narratives and story times, opinions, anxieties all day long. And it is burning us out. And that burnout, it's not just affecting our minds, it's also affecting our wallets. I made a video titled How Social Media Keeps You Poor that goes deeper into this topic, but the bottom line is that I think scrolling is a gateway drug to spending. And here is what I mean by that. If you think about it, social media is heavily rooted in comparison and escapism. And it encourages us to chase those two things through consumption. Watching videos, liking pictures, viewing people's stories, even though those things aren't physical, they're still a version of consumption. So if you're already associating escapism and status with digital consumption, you are incredibly primed to just translate that over to physical consumption, aka spending your money on random things you find online. And because social media is turning our brains into these dopamine-obsessed blobs with no impulse control, you're more likely to impulse shop and buy things you really don't need or maybe can't even afford. Research shows that compulsive spending is often caused by things like depression or anxiety. And like we already covered, we know that social media is leading to more depression and anxiety. In other words, social media is creating the perfect environment for us to fall into impulse spending, into debt, into these loops of hyperconsumption. Vice published a great article on the topic titled, "Many Americans Struggle with Debt. Social Media Doesn't Help." And in it, they profile a woman who found escapism and numbing through social media and online shopping. One of her quotes really stuck out to me, with her saying, quote, "I have $30,000 of debt that I accrued $20 at a time, and that is horrifying," noting that about half of her purchases were driven directly by Instagram ads and influencers. years. That quote really drove home to me just how much social media is rotting our wallets, and just $5 to $20 at a time. It's like that soup study that we mentioned earlier where people were eating 70% more soup without even realizing it. With social media constantly feeding us lifestyles to pine over, influencers to be jealous of, and with technology integrating shopping features more seamlessly so that it literally only takes a couple of clicks to buy something, we are truly set up to fail financially. So what can we do about this? Before I end this video, I want to talk about a few ways that you can keep social media from completely rotting your brain and your wallet. And one is just to internalize that where you spend your attention is where you end up spending your money. We have to be so intentional about where we're spending both if we want to live a life that's aligned with our values and our goals. If you're not where you want to be yet in life, whether it's financially or career-wise or mental health-wise, it's worth, I think, considering how much phone distraction is playing a part of that. Obviously, it's not everything. There are so many different factors that can contribute to not being in the place you want to be in life, but I think it's really worth investigating and interrogating yourself about how much phone distraction, social media comparison, social media addiction, all of that might be playing a role. Now, as for practical steps that can help reduce your dependence on social media and screens, here's a few. One, turning your phone off to grayscale because everything looks less enticing in grayscale. Deleting the apps off your phone so they can't even tempt you for easy dopamine bursts. Unfollowing tons of accounts on social media, any brands, any celebrities, any influencers, even people you know but you don't speak to anymore. You just don't need the noise. I actually went through a huge unfollowing spree at the beginning of the year to try cleaning up my feed and reducing comparison fatigue. And I followed the rule that I would only follow people who I had a real conversation with. It could be text or it could be in person, but a real conversation with in the past 2 years. I still have old friends and classmates on Facebook, and so there is that way to communicate with them if I need to. But ultimately, I just don't think that I need to know about that many people's lives. I think it's too much stimuli, it's too much temptation for scrolling. I don't think it's good for us. I've also been playing around with the idea of doing a dopamine fast at least one weekend every month. So that's no excessive screen time or social media, movies, music. If you extend it to food, it also means no sugary drinks or processed foods. Just trying to cut as much excess quick dopamine hits as possible for a weekend so you can hopefully reset your behavior a little bit. But what do you guys do to try preventing brain and wallet rot from social media? Do you have anything that has really worked for you, or do you just feel so stuck with no way out? Let me know your thoughts and ideas and suggestions, all of that in the comments below. I really want to hear about it. And thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video, I think you're really gonna like that video on how consumerism is ruining our planet and finances. It's an oldie, but it's a classic. And thank you so much to my patrons on Patreon and those on Buy Me a Coffee for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe and like this video if you want to keep up with more, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!